Hey, welcome to the Brave Family Podcast, episode number 5, where we believe that strong families build strong communities. And today we're talking about how do we do family culture.
That's right, because you can't just talk about family culture.
Right.
You can't just plan it out. Like eventually you actually have to put the rubber where the rubber meets the road. You got to start actually doing
That's right.
some of the things that you've put on paper. As a matter of fact, Winston Churchill said this. He said that perfection is the enemy of progress.
That's good.
And so I think a lot of
Leave it to
times
Churchill.
we're waiting for the perfect plan, or we're waiting for the perfect scenario or the perfect situation
Right.
before we're actually going to do something.
Right.
And the reality is you just have to do it because you're going to learn along the way
That's
as
right.
you go what works best
The
for you.
perfect family
and your
doesn't
family.
exist.
That's right. Like this is the winning family culture framework, not the perfect family culture framework,
Right.
because that framework does not exist, right? None of us are perfect. We're going to make mistakes throughout the process, but we can't wait. Like we actually have to start to do the family culture that we're
Right.
trying to like experience. And so
And I think we just want to give you freedom to embrace your own culture, build your own family culture, but build a winning family culture. And there's a framework, a family framework to help you do that in the link below.
yeah, that's right. You just download it. It's free. We just want to help you out. But defining family culture, celebrating the family that actually does the culture that you're trying to promote. The thing that does is that it inspires the other members in the family to start to do it, right? So like you're leading by example. You're doing
Right.
it. You're saying the things that need to be said. The actions are coming out.
Right.
That whole family equation is starting to work for you now. Language plus action over time starts to actually produce culture in your family. And the reason that it starts to produce culture is because everyone starts to follow you.
Consistency is king.
That's right. And that goes back to family systems theory by Dr. Murray Bowen.
I love that. I was saying the same thing.
Because what happens is what affects one member in the family ultimately affects the other members in the family.
We're all living in the same emotional skin
Right,
as a
and
family.
we just can't. I think sometimes we think of our own contribution as being insignificant sometimes,
Right.
but not in family.
Right.
In family, what happens to you actually happens to me. What happens to me, like, is actually
It's synergistic.
Well, it happens in our kids. You
Right.
know, it affects our kids. That's the word I was looking for. It affects our kids.
I think you've done
What
such a
happens
great
with-
job at this.
But what happens with our kids affects us.
It does.
Right? I mean, we've been in some scenarios, specifically in the last couple of years,
Yeah.
with some health battles with one of our kids. And what he's going through, it deeply affects us. Emotionally, what he's going through, it emotionally
The whole
affects
family.
us. And we're seeing now, we're kind of at this place where we've
Right.
got one that's married, we have one that's in college, we have another one that's in middle school. We're seeing the good, bad, and the ugly of all of our
All the
parenting over
choices.
the years and all the choices that we've made over the years. But we're also experiencing some of the fruit of putting
Absolutely.
feet to the pavement and actually not trying to be perfect, but doing the culture that we set out to.
And I love starting
to
early on
experience.
this. We've learned so much over the years of having kind of small, medium, and large kids. Watching the trickle-down effect in the boys has been awesome, where we started early trying to steer their character and build character and give them the moral reason why behind the actions that we were asking, holding them to a standard and reinforcing those with rewards and consequences and using sticky statements to build the family. And then we saw how that then snowballed downhill to where they were passing that on to the younger one.
But really for us, I mean, if we're to be honest, I mean, we really started out, it was much more like a rule-based parenting
We did.
situation,
Yeah, it was a
right?
little tough those first couple
yeah,
years.
I
We've
mean-
repented to the children.
I mean, our family still gives us a hard time that our oldest child had to like stick his nose in the corner whenever.
Sometimes the big boys will say, corner, corner, corner.
Yeah, well, when they're speaking to the little one,
Yeah,
when
like,
they're speaking about the
hey,
little
how
one's
about
behavior,
How about passing out
Yeah.
some more consequences to this guy?
Right. I think it was one of my aunts. She wanted to give us a dunce hat as like a present one Christmas as a joke to give to one of our kids.
That's
And
funny.
so we started out very rule heavy, and really it was because we were trying to drive behavior. We wanted the outcome, and our motives were pure.
Right. We just
but-
didn't understand the value of shepherding the child's heart rather than just behavior modification.
Right, and we didn't really understand at that time how the family as a whole affected it, right? It
It's
was more
true.
like, dictatorial, top down from us to the kids And some of that was just because, to be honest, my lack of patience, like, they were embarrassing me in public, everybody.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
let's be honest.
That's such a trap when you
right?
first start parenting. You just think that everything your child does is a reflection on you
it's so
as an
true.
individual, and whether you're successful in life is whether your kid got an A on that stupid art project, and therefore you have all these parents doing the science projects. I mean, can we get real, right? But
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen,
you just learn as you go.
We knew a family, totally off topic, but we knew a family one time that the mother was doing all of the daughter's homework in college.
Yes.
And she was like going into like medical things. Like, man, you
Yeah.
got to know some of this stuff.
Yeah, you
know?
gotta know.
But that just illustrates like that the pressure to get the outcome that
It's
you want,
true.
instead of saying, hey, no, we want like at the end of the day, there's an experience with the family that we want.
Right. And these are our values. And so we're going to create experience to strengthen those values, encourage those values, celebrate those values.
Yeah. And while you're out there doing your family culture, just know that there's going to be a magnetic pull for you to compare your family and compare yourselves to everybody else that's
And I don't
out
think
there.
it's ever been worse. I don't think that pull has ever been worse than it is right now.
Oh, it's terrible.
Because
Social media just
Instagram
drives
moms.
it. Oh my gosh. I mean, our niece is like so great on Instagram.
So great.
I want her life, for goodness sakes. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Give me the
it's
goats.
amazing because her Instagram is so
I don't want
great.
goats.
That's right. Hey, Nissa, if you're watching this,
We're
love
proud of you.
We love you.
We
We're
love
proud
you.
of you. And I want your life. I mean, I really do. But as a result, though, comparison, and you just have to know, comparison kills. Comparison kills culture.
It's true.
Comparison kills relationship. Comparison, it's just like everything about comparison, it'll kill you.
It robs you of all joy because it holds
Oh.
you to an unrealistic standard that isn't even real. But then you fight yourself because you think it's real. You impose these ridiculous standards on yourself.
Oh, it's
It's
so
terrible.
true. It's so true. It's so true. But that magnetic pull, it's so strong. And you have to be aware of it, because now you're in a position where you're like, hey, I'm going to do this family culture. And all of a sudden, comparison creeps in. And that quote from Winston Churchill disappears from your mind.
Right.
And no longer are you thinking that perfection, it gets in the way of progress. Now you're
Right.
thinking that my progress is getting in the way of perfection. And now I have to change everything I'm doing. No, listen. Over time. Remember.
That's right.
Remember the
Consistency.
equation.
Mhm.
Remember the equation. The equation is your language, sticky statements, values, plus your actions over time is what creates the culture that you want to live.
That's so good.
And comparison will mess that equation
It'll
up
derail
for
it.
you, and it'll derail the do part of this framework, because you'll stop doing the things that are really most important to you. Remember, we said this weeks ago, but you get to write the rules
That's
of the
right.
family you want to experience.
But you can have the family you've always wanted.
Yeah, and you have to write those rules.
Yesterday I was visiting with a nurse. My youngest was having some medical stuff done, and the nurse said, I'm afraid to read parenting books because I'm afraid that I'll just start to feel bad for all of the stuff that I'm doing. And I said, man, there's a special place for those things in the trash.
I know.
I mean, you have to have the freedom to write your own rules when it comes to parenting and embrace the values that are important to you.
And that's not to say that there's not great information out there about
There
parenting. The danger in that information, though, is that you trying to create a family that you don't actually want because you think it's the right thing, instead of saying, hey, this is what we want in our family, and so therefore I'm going to go learn about those things, right? Like defining that first so that you can do it later is really important.
And comparison even kills, just to build off your point, when we want the exact same things out of our very different children.
Yeah, that's good.
And we have so much power to celebrate the individuality of the kids, their individual strengths, their individual purpose, the role that they play in the family. I was just visiting with a friend, and she was saying, the first one is so celebrated and the baby is so celebrated. And what about that kid in the middle? Well, you can actually get a lot of sibling rivalry just from kids comparing themselves to their siblings,
And to each
instead
other,
of stepping into the situation and bringing value to each child as an individually. And we would actually do that when the kids would fight and then have to apologize. We would say, what are you thankful for about your brother? What do you admire about your brother? We did this in times of conflict and non-conflict because we really wanted to celebrate their individual gifts, their individual purpose. let each of them shine in their own way because they were very different, but then they would esteem one another. And you can't really be thankful and irritated at the same time.
Well, you can be, or even critical, right?
Critical,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
You can't be thankful and critical at the same
somebody
time.
at the same time.
And so when they're, as they were messing up and they were coming back together, they're working things out, we would bring value with one another to the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just think back of times because we had boys, right? Like, so
that works in marriage too, by the way.
They would wrestle and fight, and we couldn't own anything nice because they were constantly breaking everything.
Right, it's true.
But it was never more tense in our house than when they started comparing themselves to each other, and that's not to say that the individual kids or the individual children don't have to fulfill the family values.
Right.
They still have to fulfill the family values,
but they know what part they play in the family.
Right.
They know why they value each other. Even asking the question, why do you need your brother? What does he have that you don't have that you need? And comparison kills, but they can choose joy when they have that thankfulness component in the equation.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think with that, what I was trying to get at is I think so many parents, because they see the individual differences in their kids, and they want their kids to be individuals and to grow individually. And I think with time, at certain ages, that's more appropriate than other times. But at the same time, what they do is they let certain kids get away with certain things that are outside of the family values because they're just expressing themselves or they're just being individuals. Now you still have to defend your family values, but the way that they're you still honor their individual nature, but as it relates to the family culture, they can't violate the family culture, right? Because that's the special part of who we are as Rosners, or who these
our
guys,
family call. I love the scripture that says God sets the lonely in families. And so we would even talk to the boys about, hey, God put you in our family. I'm not the perfect parent, but God chose me. I'm the best parent for you. God chose me to be your parent. God chose you to be in this family. But this is the role you play in the family, and this is why we need each other. And this is what I'm learning from you. And you're communicating trust, you're communicating value, you're communicating honor, and we really want to have a culture of honor in our home.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think the more that you're willing to do these things, the more you'll experience that too. Because hey, remember, listen, you can have the family that you've always wanted. We believe in you.